Beyond the Lens, Women in Photo and Video. Join us for an insightful panel discussion addressing the persistent underrepresentation of women in photography and video careers, despite overall workforce gains. Our panel of accomplished women in lens-based media work will share their career journeys, shedding light on the unique opportunities and challenges they encounter in the field. Moderating this session is Lisa Waananen Jones, a Lester M. Smith Distinguished Professor of Journalism and Media Production at the Murrow College of Communication. She specializes in data reporting and visualization, visual communication, and rural journalism. She was part of the New York Times team awarded the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for Public Service for coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. With a professional background as a local reporter in Spokane and as a graphics reporter at the New York Times, she now teaches visual communication, web video, photojournalism, and data visualization. Please welcome Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for that lovely video introduction. I am super excited to get to this panel and really grateful for all of you for being here. This is something that I have wanted to do for a long time, and many of you have been in my classes and know that we talk about this. This is going to be essentially a panel about careers in photo and video, especially in journalism, but I wanted to feature women panelists because women are still underrepresented in these careers, including a variety of different areas, which you'll hear about from our panelists. Some of the research on that, just kind of for some examples, is that globally the Reuters Institute has done a survey, this is the 2024 data, that 40% of journalists globally are women, but only 24% of top editors and executives are, so there persists a leadership gap. Specific to photographers, a group called Women Photograph, which has been sort of a grassroots effort, has been measuring this since 2017 of how many front page lead photos in US publications are made by women, and it was only 13.4% when they started in 2017. It has since increased to about 20% and stayed there since about 2020. So that's still just 1 in 5. And research in the US and globally also shows that women in public journalism roles, including as photographers where you're working in public, or on-air reporters who have a public face in presenting the news, face gender-based harassment and often don't get support from their employers or newsrooms, in part because of low resources and sometimes because it's perceived as just part of the job. So I'm really delighted to bring you a panel that will talk not just about these hard realities, but also a lot of the career opportunities that are available and ways that everyone can support women in these roles. I will just briefly, before I move on, give a shout out to the men in the room. Thank you for being here. This is not an issue that is exclusive to female reporters and journalists, and we need the support of everybody to do better. With that, I'm going to start turning things over to the panelists, and my hope is that they will do the rest of the talking, basically. So I'm hoping we can do introductions going down the line. Please do tell us, your name and your current position, which you can also find on the Murrow Symposium website, especially if you're looking to contact anyone later on. And please tell us a little bit also about how you became interested in visual journalism, especially compared to other formats, even if you do multiple types of journalism or creative work. And how have your values and goals shaped your career so far? Thanks.
Hello, my name is Liesbeth. I am a staff photographer at the local paper here. You might have seen me running around. I work for the Moscow-Pullman Daily News, which is a subsidiary of the Lewiston Tribune down the road as well. So I work out there as well. So I grew up in a home that got the paper every day, and so I've always had a love for local journalism. And I wanted to be a writer at first, but in high school and college, I got really into photography and realized, especially through journalism, I just felt that that was the way that I understood people best and could really capture a story and bring more to stories. Out of college, I was a reporter and editor for a few local papers in the Dallas area, and then I went freelance to be a photojournalist, and then took on a fellowship with the Dallas Morning News last year. And so I was a staff photographer for them and worked with the Poynter Institute to learn while I did that. And I just moved up here over the summer. So I'm happy to be here, and I had my first winter and everything. So it's been pretty cool. I have found that I have a special interest in like women and children in my coverage, and in Dallas, a lot of that focus was homelessness and instability, and I'm kind of figuring out how to find that niche here and apply my interests here as well. So,
hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Just to like set the stage. My name is Paris Jackson, and I got my start after I graduated from WSU. I was working in Cable 8, so that's here on campus, trying to, learn all the things that I could learn and absorb as much as possible. And so once I graduated, I interned at King 5 in Seattle. It's the NBC station there. And then I landed my first job a year after that in Eugene, Oregon as a reporter. So at that time, I was, what we call is the one-man band. So you schlep the gear around the city, covering all the things, and then you write the story, you edit the story, and then you present the story. And so in Eugene, I was a general assignment reporter covering all types of issues in the city, from city council to the Prefontaine race, because Eugene is known as Track USA. Following that, I was able to get a job in Birmingham, Alabama. So born and raised on the West Coast, well, the Pacific Northwest, right here in Washington, and made my way all the way heading south. And so there, I also filled in on the anchor desk and covering severe weather to presidential elections, county government. And then from there, I transitioned. I wanted to get back home. And so I then landed at Como, the ABC station in Seattle. And so I guess wrapping all of that up, where I was there for about 7 years, more in the anchor role in the studio as opposed to being outside covering live news. But I think the thing that always enticed me about journalism was that curiosity for storytelling. So whether you're talking with, we call it the man on the street, going up to somebody and asking them their opinion about whatever we're focused on that evening, to talking with a political figure. It's trying to get to the bottom of the story, trying to get to the heart of the matter. And that curiosity was really sparked just through my childhood. And so, again, coming here to WSU and really kind of cutting my teeth and learning all of the things that I needed to know in terms of carrying that camera and learning how to edit and then learning how to put together a news story. That is really what sparked, helped cultivate that curiosity as I transitioned into the professional world. And so currently, I'm at the Seattle PBS station where I host a weekly news magazine show.
Hi, I'm Annie Warren. I'm the Director of Content at Northwest Public Broadcasting. We're based here next to the Murrow College. I'm down in Tri-Cities in our studios there. And so I'm also a photographer, both for my current role, though that's not my main job, but I do get to accompany our reporters from time to time, so that's exciting. But this is certainly my first role in public media and my first real full-time role in journalism. I have a photojournalism degree from the University of Montana. I was there just sort of on the cusp of, I learned with film in the darkroom. Black and white film was my first photojournalism class. And I'm so glad I learned in that medium because I feel like it's given me a lot of skills. But so as I was graduating and leaving the university world, it was kind of in the transition to digital photography at that time. And we were very geared towards getting newspaper photographer jobs. Funny, sort of, not really, side story. Someone mentioned, Maria said earlier about getting traffic tickets. So I actually had a wonderful photojournalism internship set up at the Chattanooga Times Free Press in Tennessee, like one of the top photo papers at the time, or maybe it still is. But when it came down to it, I had too many speeding tickets on my kids. Anyways, sort of side story, but basically, I feel like there are things in my life that have taken me away maybe from a straight journalism path. and that was maybe one of them. So after college, I ended up going to Mexico for a time. I had met a woman in New York City. I interned in the Time Life building at Money Magazine during my college time, and had met a lot of great people during that time, and anyways made this connection to this it's called the Indigenous Photography Archive in Chiapas, Mexico. So when like the internship didn't pan out and stuff, I kind of was like, well, maybe I'll just go to Mexico, take my camera. So anyways, found myself down in Chiapas for a time, and was building my portfolio, did a little bit of freelance work down there. I've always loved traveling. I've always loved languages. I've always loved to meet new people. I come from Royal City, a small town here in the Columbia Basin. And so, but I've always had the fortunate, the luck through my family to, they've always pushed us to leave home and to explore. And so I've always had that support, which I'm thankful for. So yeah, and then eventually, I guess life happens. I met my now current husband down there. And so when we came back to the States eventually, my first job was in communications, public affairs. So that's really been my career path, is public school district, first off, for about 6 years, and then from there into public libraries. And you asked about your values and how that has maybe driven my career. And I would say I've always been very thoughtful that who I'm working for, for me, it's important that it's a mission that I agree with and that I support. And so I've always been in public service jobs in the communications field. And then, yeah, this job, I've been here just over a year. When this job opened up, I thought, oh my gosh, there's like a journalism job with a mission that I believe in, and just really feel excited and fortunate to be here and to learn so much from our team. And so that's it. I'm here now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica. I was born in the Philippines and raised in Hawaii, and I moved to Wazoo for a reason unknown. I'm kidding. I was like, what is Pullman? Anyway, when I got here, I worked at the Daily Evergreen all 4 years. I was a reporter, editor, and eventually the EIC at one point. And before I graduated, I landed a legislative internship with the Columbia Basin Herald, which was a pretty interesting experience because I did a lot of my legislative reporting in my apartment. So that was fun. And then after I graduated, I landed a general news internship in the News Tribune, which is in Tacoma. And 2 months in, they offered me a full-time position. And now I'm the East Pierce County reporter. So I pretty much cover everything on the east side of Pierce County. So that's pretty much Puyallup, Bonnie Lake, and Sumner. So there's no specific topic I cover. I pretty much cover city government, school board, and drama and all that stuff. So yeah, I've been there for about 3 years now, and I've been loving it since then. At the job that I'm at, I write most of the time, but I also take photos and videos and maybe even TikToks here and there when our visuals team is unable to accompany me. So yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you so much. And I should have done a better job introducing to you. Some of you are being very modest about awards and other accomplishments, and so I encourage you to look everybody up as well. We will move on to questions, though, to make sure we have time for some student questions at the end too. So in this case, we'll move around. I think this first question I'd like to hear from Paris and Annie first, just because I think you've been in your careers longer, and then does that work? So the question here is really sort of a broad one of how your identity has mattered in your career and your visual work. You know, one thing I talk to a lot of students about in photo classes and other visual classes is that it's physical work. You have to be present. You're in these places. This isn't something you typically are doing, you know, remote or in your apartment. And that changes kind of your own relationship to that work. So how has your identity mattered in your visual work, whether that's, you know, how you are interacting with sources or presenting yourself or approaching things? And are there ways that your identity has been a barrier or an advantage as you've gone through your career?
That's a really good question, but it's complex. And we're here to be honest, and so we're gonna dig in. I think for me, I tried to not lean into my identity, and so I guess what I'm trying to say is, early on in my career, I just wanted to assimilate. I just wanted to, whatever the story was, well, and I think, let me be clear too, you do the story. It's not about your identity, but I think at the same time, there can be a disconnect where you're trying to be a part and amongst when you don't look like your peers. And so, with time, with experience, I've come to realize that I bring something to the table that my counterparts do not bring, as we all do. There is all something unique about us that whether it's your cultural background, whether it's your religion, whether it's where you grew up. And so I think just the journey of having that confidence in who I am and what my background is, I've been able to lean into that more. But I think also when you're in certain environments, it's not that it's not welcomed, but there may not be that familiarity or that comfortability to show up fully who you are. And so it's taken time to, I guess, come into that. And so I don't know if I'm answering the question fully, but I think, what I guess my word of advice for anyone that comes from all those different things, all those different characteristics that I mentioned, lean into that. That's your superpower. And you may shed a light, you may be the voice, you may be able to add some historical, cultural nuance to a story that you're telling that, again, your counterpart cannot. And so, again, in this stage, I know I'm no longer code switching, and you might have to look that up about what that is, but I'm just existing. And so I think that just comes with time. That just comes with I guess, being comfortable in the spaces that you are. And so hopefully I'm answering that clearly.
Yeah, thank you. So for me, I guess I can speak, we're here on a women's panel. So I guess as a woman in my photo practice, I would say it's been almost always an asset. I feel like I am naturally drawn to photographing women and children, girls, and I feel there's often, not always, often less feeling less of a threat to a stranger, when I go up to their child and say, can I photograph them or whatever. I think maybe the fact that I'm a woman, it can be less threatening perhaps to some people. So I feel like that's always been more of an advantage for me. And certainly I draw on where I'm from, a rural background, and being able to relate, I think, in ways that to people that are from rural backgrounds. For example, obviously, like, I can relate in ways that others maybe cannot, and I feel like that has served me well, because again, I can relate to them. People see me perhaps in their, I can talk about what's happening on their farm or whatever with like a genuine knowledge, So I think that's been helpful in my work. Also, having grown up in a farming community that is very divided in many ways, very much, white farmer community and like a Latino farm worker community. I mean, I'm very much generalizing, but that is what I grew up with in a lot of ways. And so, and then having lived in Mexico, speaking the language and having that experience just as a person, we've heard so much from Maria and Hosa about the border and about immigration. And until I lived in Mexico in a small rural village where the men were leaving, the men were gone. Like there were women and children there, and their husbands were in El Norte because they didn't have, they wanted to build a new home or whatever. They needed funds. There's like being there. I feel like I've kind of been able to see like the other side of that issue in a lot of ways, like why people leave their families and go. So I guess I don't know where it's going with that exactly, but I feel like I can relate. I can understand or empathize perhaps better than some, and that has certainly helped in my photography work, in my storytelling work. And then I also want to mention, just because it is one of my many roles, which we all have many roles, but I think as women, being a mom, I'm a mother of two 13-year-old, almost 14-year-old girls, and I'm a wife, and that is like, that forms you in many ways, and like priorities, and where sometimes you maybe can't take that job because you are a mom, or so I think for women, particularly being traditionally the lead, I know it's changing and every family is different, but at the end of the day, I have very much felt like I'm the first parent in a lot of ways. Nothing against my husband, is very supportive and a wonderful father. Not dissing him at all, but like at the end of the day, like I'm the one nursing the two twins. You know what I'm saying? So that has certainly formed my my experience as a professional as well. Like there's no doubt about that. We as women, like you have to consider those things, and that maybe a man would not as much or in different ways. So yeah.
Okay. So I would say my experience has been a little mixed. So the communities I cover are predominantly white, and when they see this tiny Filipino girl walking up to them, they're like, who is this chick? But for the most part, they've been receptive to it. They're like, okay, she's doing her job. She's a journalist. She's here to capture the visuals and all that stuff. But I mean, there are times where I get thrown microaggressions and I'm just like, okay, I'm just trying to get out of here at this point. So I think it's been a balance, and something I just keep reminding myself is that I am in this job for a reason and they gave me it for a reason. So yeah, it's been mixed.
I would say that it's kind of mixed as well. As it's great being able to like walk up to pretty much anyone with a smile and a camera and be like, can I take your photo? And people generally aren't like scared of me or anything. But at the same time, people tend to not take like a young looking woman very seriously as well. So you have to kind of prove yourself in ways that like a man walking up to the scene or an older person walking up to the scene might have to. Especially in sports, I found that it's really hard to find a woman around me that I can, lean on, even ask things that feel like dumb questions, but like, what do you wear to a sporting event as a woman? Because every 40-year-old man is just wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and for whatever reason, like, women can't do that. So so there's lots of random things that pop up that you might not even think about on a daily basis. But there's also instances where I have to be very aware of the fact that like I don't know what people are going through or like what their experiences are because I'm a young white woman. And so just being able to still capture and empathize with people that you don't know at that deeper level, like your job is to understand them and show like that to the readers. So that's something that I feel like I've really learned throughout my years of experience, and being a reporter really helped with that as well, because I had to learn to ask the questions that would then turn into the photos in those situations. So
Great, thank you so much. Those were all really good points and really interesting to hear about. I will add, just because I've told this to faculty, but not my students, but some of you will recognize this, that when I first started working here teaching, I tried to pick a lot of examples, especially in visual media, photos and video that featured older women, because that tends to be a demographic that people aren't quite sure what to do with. There's a certain question of like vanity, or how do you represent older women in a way that is, flattering, or people don't want to be on camera, or maybe we're just not as interested in their story. So it was something I sought out and on purpose. I've been teaching here 10 years now. So I've realized this year, I was talking to faculty, that students probably just think I picked a bunch of examples of people like myself, which wasn't my intention, at the time. But, I think how that identity can shift over time is a really interesting thing to hear about in different stages of your career as well. This kind of is a good follow-up question, talking about that support role and who do you ask for some of these questions? How do you find professional mentors and role models to support you? And we'll throw this to anyone who wants to answer it first.
I think it's pretty simple. You may have some apprehension about it, but I think it's really kind of basic in terms of someone that you look up to. If you can find them, whether it's on a website, whether it's on LinkedIn, reach out and develop a thick skin, in terms of they may not respond, but at the same time, you never know. So it's like, take that risk, because at the same time, the flip side of the coin is that could be a connection, a relationship that opens doors, maybe not immediately, but down the line. Because one thing that you will find when you are in the journalism communication space, it's a small group of people, and you see people, like I sat next to somebody that I hadn't seen 15 years maybe, and we sat next to each other and our mouths were wide open, and I interned with her, and again, I hadn't seen her in so long. So it's just like that full circle moment where you're learning from a mentor, and then they pop up and they're sitting next to you, but it's someone that can hire you. It's someone that can give you a different perspective. You can shadow them, but it's just reaching out, making and building those relationships.
So Lisa actually started my, web of connections. She sent me this website to like digital women leaders. And then I found somebody who worked at the Seattle Times who is also Asian, and she connected me with the Asian American Journalists Association, which kind of just broadened my connections a little bit more. So it's definitely what Paris said, don't be afraid to reach out. I think a lot of journalists are really happy to welcome you with open arms and tell you about their experience. So groups like AJA, NHJ, and there's other journalism groups out there. Yeah, NABJ, that are pretty good at like connecting you with people you want to connect with. So yeah.
So I recently applied, or last year, applied for a PBS leadership program. It's called Accelerate, and was accepted. So I'm currently partnered with a mentor. She's over in Florida, but she has a similar, job role as me. She's at a dual licensee NPR PBS station, just like we are. They place you with someone who's you're gonna be able to relate well with, and so I'm really excited about that. We've just started our mentorship program, but so I would say, in your current jobs, look for resources like that, professional development resources, grants, whatever it is that you can apply for, perhaps those kind of professional programs as well.
Yeah, I would say just kind of anytime you see someone's work that you like or someone that you haven't seen before, just go up and say hi and say who you are. I try to keep up with as many people on like Instagram and, just make sure I know what they're working on and who they're interacting with, what areas they're in. I'm also part of the National Press Photographers Association, which is a great one, especially for women. They have a women's conference every year, and they've worked really hard to have women kind of be at the forefront of their program in the last like 5 to 10 years. I would say I haven't had many mentors that are women at this point. The few newsrooms I've worked in, I didn't have women around me, and so it's been really important to go outside of my own newsroom to find those mentorships. Honestly, keep up with your classmates and the people around you, because they're going to go all over the place, and have people that you want to talk to and get to know as well. So
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think in my career, I've had like a woman boss for maybe 6 months total out of my whole career. And, that's not a barrier. A lot of it's just coincidence. But I think it is really good advice to be looking outside the workplace.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say it doesn't have to be in your field either. Like if you have just someone who inspires you that you can, talk to about life, like that counts. That's great. Find those people in your life, even if it's a peer. It doesn't have to be someone older than you. I think it can be really anyone who believes in you and can be a sounding board. So.
Yeah, this is and one other thing I want to mention, because I think women tend to be really good at this, and I also see this in a lot of our men students, and I hope you'll learn from this too. I've tried to foster this in some of my male peers who are, older, and it's a little bit harder to do, but really relying on your peers and peer mentorship and friends. And one symposium memory that stands out to me is that, like, I've been going to a lot of these, right? They've had these since I was a student. And like when we have male keynote speakers, they always like thank their wives, which good, you should. But sometimes when the women come, like Ann Curry, who was here a couple years ago, she brought her friends with her, and they were sitting in the front row, and they like cheered the whole time she was talking. And I was like, that's right. That is so cool. And I do think that that's something that I hope you all can take with you out of like the college setting too, where it's honestly easier to connect with your peers. It gets harder, but maintaining that is really valuable. That was my piece of advice, which is kind of a transition to the last question that we'll ask here, and then we'll do a couple student questions if we have time. This is really broad. Just what advice do you have for women students who aspire to jobs like yours, or for their peers or managers who want to support them in their success?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you guys we're friends now, so this is a family. And so I alluded to, I think what I was struggling with early on in my career was a confidence issue. And I didn't say it explicitly, but I think that was what it was, because for me, I didn't see myself reflected most oftentimes, with the exception of Oprah or somebody like that, in a position that I aspired to be. But I think at the same time, for people of color, and maybe I'll just say for me as a Black woman, is sometimes I feel that my value, or the value that society places on me, is that I have to perform, or I have to reach these heights to be valued, or to be recognized as someone that is contributing to the greater good of society. But I think if you get into these fields, you are already valuable. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get Emmys. I have that as a part of the recognition that I've been able to earn those awards. But my value is just because I am who I am. And so anything that you do, know your worthiness, know who you are. And I think as you climb these ladders, if you have that foundation, it won't, I mean, of course these things will matter, and they're nice things to receive, but you will be just a stronger, more confident, more grounded person. So I think that's what I want to leave you with, is develop and cultivate that inner spirit, that self, that confidence, because that is what I feel is most important. Because, as I said, things change with society and who's on top. It flips, and the person can be down the next round. But cultivate who you are first before you start climbing those ladders.
Maybe like imposter syndrome a little bit. Is that what you're kind of referring to? I think a lot of us probably go through that. I certainly do or have. So that's a great point. I think, staying true to who you are at your core. And like I said, for me, that's been like working at places where I believe in the mission. And so I would say on that note, like wherever you have a job, even if it's not your dream job right away, try and find ways to incorporate your skills. So my first real job was as an administrative assistant for public affairs at a school district. So, but I came with some really great photo skills, which they had never had before. So I blew them out of the water, like that, those kind of things. Like if you can incorporate your what makes you unique wherever you are, you're going to grow. They're going to see the value in you and promote you. And so I would say, as creatives, as photographers, videographers, another word of advice is to create constantly. I remember in college, somebody said, I think a famous guy said, like, you're only as good as your last photo. So I kind of always keep that, like that, push yourself, always look for more, and then you build that muscle memory, like literally and figuratively, like you're building that photographer muscle memory. Make mistakes, go out, take the jobs, take, someone invites you to like shoot their wedding, whatever, shoot their senior portraits, like do it. Make those mistakes, make them now. Like they will make you a better photographer in the long run. So don't expect perfection right away. Like it's a journey. Like this is like a full circle journey for me, and to have, to be in this position right now, it means a lot. But I didn't get here by, I put in my time, and I kept shooting. I had 2 little 3-year-olds, but I kept shooting, like not all the time. It's pretty hard, but I think I can say I'm really proud of where I am right now, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of belief in yourself and a lot of support around you. So just keep shooting.
I think something I would want to say to students is to put yourself first. If you know the meme, put yourself first. If you don't, that's fine. You can Google it later. But I say this because with this profession, it's really easy to wear a bunch of hats. Like I mentioned earlier, not only do I write, but I also take photos and videos and TikToks if I need to. But sometimes I forget to take care of myself and my mental health. I think a lot of journalists sometimes get caught up with like, oh, I got to get all my clips. I got to get this photo, blah, blah, blah. But like, you only have yourself, really. Drake said YOLO at some point. And I just think it's really important to know where your limit is, and, not to do more than what you think you're able to. I'm not putting that eloquently, but I'm just saying, put yourself first. If you're tired, you're tired. And if you can do it, you can do it. So, yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of great advice already. I would say, especially as a photographer, just doing a lot of different kinds of things is super helpful. I've done the weddings and the senior portraits and the family pictures and newborns and everything. And a lot of times that's like a passion thing that I do for my friends and family, but it also just really expands the way that you use your camera and keeps you, I don't know, you never know when that random lighting situation is what you walk into on a random daily news assignment and you're like, wait, I know how to shoot this. So just really trying it all. And especially when I was a freelancer for about a year and a half, the thing that really kept my rent paid was I did portraits for a random medical magazine that was just like their happy stories of people who had surgery and now they're doing great. And like they were really fun and they paid my bills, and then I got to go chase the random things that the Dallas Morning News was sending my way or whatever other paper was sending me stories. So I feel like every opportunity is whatever you make of it, and just try them all and you'll figure out what you like and what you don't like real fast. So that helps a lot.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to do a couple student questions. We only have a little bit of time, so I'm going to bring this out to the audience. We're going to go to Emma first, and then we'll see how much time we have.
Do you want me to stand?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, I would just really want to know what was the most valuable experience or opportunity you've had so far that kind of helped you get to where you are now.
Oh, don't look at me. I think it goes back to reaching out to people that you're interested in, either being your mentor or learning more about them. During my internship, I met a lady, well, she was my supervisor, but we developed a relationship kind of beyond the scope of her just being my boss. She was kind of took me under her wing, and back to connecting with organizations, professional organizations. She told me about the National Association of Black Journalists. And when I left WSU, I didn't even know that existed, but it's the largest Black journalism organization in the country. And having the opportunity, she told me about it, and 3 months later, they had a conference. I was able to attend that conference, and seeing people that look like me from all across the country, hungry, wanting to be, a reporter, an anchor, a producer, a photographer in that one space, that really, it sparked something in me, a deeper fire that I already had. And so those relationships from that time when I went to that convention in Vegas in 2007, I still have those relationships today. And so I would say, just again, making those connections, because you just never know. And who, if they can be, someone that can hire you or point you to another person that can just also be another mentor.
I want to echo what Paris said, because I was thinking about the Asian American Journalists Association convention that I went to last year, and it was really nice seeing people who looked like me and connecting with new folks and making new friends. And then one thing I wanted to add to, in terms of what kind of gave me a spark, quote unquote, to be in this profession, is moments I've had with when I'm in an assignment and I'm talking to somebody who looks like me, and sometimes, or most of the time, their comments are always like, oh, I'm so glad you're reporting on this, or like, I'm so glad you're listening to me and you're giving me this space to tell you my story. It's moments like that where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I joined this profession in the first place. So yeah, those are pretty nice. Gives me butterflies.
Hi, everyone. So as people who are both news professionals but also creatives, how do you balance criticism of your work when it's covering news but also based in a creative vision that you have?
I think I kind of learned to develop a thick skin, so I want to focus on my writing a little bit for now. My editor loves to put red marks on my copy, And it's discouraging at times, but I know that she's only trying to make my piece better, and that, it's not a criticism in any way. I feel like, I guess it depends. You kind of just have to read the room if your editor is criticizing you or if they're just simply trying to make you a better journalist. In terms of visuals, a lot of the feedback I get are mostly positive. In a way, they put it in that, what do you call it? The feedback sandwich, where it's like, oh, you did this so great, but you should work on this. But other than that, it was awesome. So things like that really help. And also my mom was pretty hard on me when I was young, so I kind of learned how to not take things personally. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
So I think in photography, you do get a lot of different criticism, and it's such a subjective art form that you're gonna have one editor that picks a totally different photo than the other one, and that makes the decisions even harder personally for me. So I've really had to work on confidence in picking whichever one is my favorite, even if someone else might pick a different one. And at the end of the day, honestly, you kind of get used to being okay, that was my favorite one, but they used that other one on the front page, it's fine. You eventually get used to only giving your best work instead of being so nervous that someone's not going to pick the one that you like, so you end up sending one that you're maybe not the most proud of, but you're I remember my editor liked that angle that one time. And they're almost always going to choose that one, and then you're annoyed at yourself the next day when you see it in the paper. So I've just really learned to pick for myself almost, and make sure that, because I was the one that was there, I was the one that feels I understand which photo tells the story the best way. And I feel editors are also great about giving you feedback. If you're I'm really stuck, I don't know, here's 5 photos, they're going to tell you which one they want. And sometimes that's the fastest way to get it done. And then as you grow and do more things, you get better at picking for yourself. And so just leaning on your editors. And I've even had coworkers that are great about I'll send them a screenshot of my little square on my computer, and they'll be yeah, pick that one, that's better. So just kind of ask the questions until you have the confidence to pick for yourself.
I would add, I think that's a great approach, and I think sometimes because we are the ones there, and we can be so emotionally tied to a photo that we took or the instance, that it can often be the best way is to remove yourself a little bit from it and let that critique happen, and not take it personally. And I think for me, it's trying to find a lesson in that, whatever it is, even if it feels if it hurts, at the end of the day, they're probably just trying to make you a better photographer or a better journalist. So, and then on the other hand, or also, and also, I would say that when I approach in my photography, I'm always thinking, my very first person that I'm thinking about is the subject. If it's if it's a person. And I'm thinking, are they gonna like this photo? Is this a true representation of them? Are they gonna feel well represented in this photo? Of course, they don't always get to see the end product. Usually, hopefully in some way they may, or if I get there, I'm able to send it to them or something. And so I always have them at the forefront of, or I try to, I should say. Sure, I don't always, but I try to say, okay, is this going to be a photo that they would put on their wall, or share with a family, with someone. So I think if you keep those things in mind, it can be helpful.
Thank you. I think we are going to pause it there for questions just for the sake of time. Since we teach our students to do this, is there anything else you want to add that's just come up before we wrap things up here?
That is the best trick in the book for any interview.
Yeah. We teach you all that, right? Yes. Okay. So we will wrap up here, and I'm hopeful that if you do have other questions, you'll be able to ask them afterward. I just want to thank you all for your time and insights and being so honest with us. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for being here and being good listeners. I know it's really great to hear from these professionals, and I hope you will take all their advice to heart. One last round of applause, please, for our panelists, and thank you.